Okay, and remember this is a project meeting, so it's a graded meeting. So sign in the chat, but also go to the Project 4 meeting and make sure you sign in, type in your name there. And like always, if you're here and I can see you, then you don't have to write a summary. And if you miss the meeting, then make sure you write the summary, 500 words, to get your 4 points. And the reason it's 4 points instead of 3 points is because this is probably the most important meeting of the semester. And Project 4 is the sort of biggest, it's your final, like in a way, it counts for more than the other assignments. So there's an emphasis on grading, and there's going to be an emphasis on the work that you do and the quality of your project. So we'll talk about that in a second. Today, what we're going to do is go over Project 3, and I'm just going to briefly look at your projects, and then remember, if you have questions or if you want more feedback, then we can get together. If you're really interested, we could set up an individual Zoom chat, or if there's a few of you that want to get together and set up a little group chat, that's fine with me. All right, so let's take a look at Project 3. Oh, and then we'll discuss Project 4 and get you started on that. And then I want to go over some kind of end of the semester things like grading and extra credit and those kind of things. So also, I can't forget to go over the project quiz. So this morning I forgot to go over the project quiz, but we'll go over the project quiz and then that'll be it for today. All right, so let's take a look. Let me make sure, let's see what I got up here. All right, let me bring up Canvas first. We are looking, what are we looking at? We are looking at we're looking at Project 3. All right, that's good. We'll just go from there. Okay, hopefully you all can see that. I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me. All right, so this is Cedar's project, and you can kind of tell, like if you watched Between the Folds, there was that kind of experimental group called Le Crimp, and they wouldn't use a pattern. They would just sort of fold and fold and fold until they have their project. And that's kind of what happened here, I think. So this is, first of all, the texture is, I think it's gorgeous. I mean, I like how this feels as an object. When I grade these, I look at craftsmanship, and when things are organic like this, it sort of I have to sort of shift context a little bit and just sort of look at things that come up when you work this way. So one of the things that comes up is texture. So there's a lot of interesting texture here, the next thing I look for is enclosed volume. So this does have enclosed volume, like the center almost ends up, I, is that supposed to be a fig? Oh, that is it's, so the figure here is very much enclosed volume, and the sides that go around also enclose volume in a way. And I think that the whole thing, if you look at it kind of like this is empty space, this is kind of enclosed volume. It's sort of, it's almost 50-50. But even if I don't consider like the whole object enclosed volume, and uh, I sort of count, especially like in this area where it's sort of covered over, then, but there's still enough enclosed volume so that it satisfies the criteria of the project. Um, Normally speaking, when you use white paper, it can appear to be bland, but whatever this paper is, there's sort of a brownish, sort of yellowish tint to it, which really like makes a difference in terms of the color. So when a paper is just a little bit tinted, like either a blue or a brown, what happens is in the folds and creases, the color sort of multiplies and gets sort of, it bounces off itself, and it makes it sort of darker of whatever that color is. So if this is light brown, when you fold it, it starts to make these dark brown um, little creases and shapes. So overall, I think this is it's successful, it's interesting, and I appreciate that um, the it's kind of a risk to try and assemble something like this in an organic way because it's it can be hit or miss whether it works out or not, and a lot of times there's a bunch of like trial pieces that end up in the corner, but this one came out great. That's really that's a if you see this as a body, that's a really kind of cool, very sculptural angle. This one. All right, good job. Whoa. Okay, so this is great. So this is a version of the modular project, and I wish these were sized down a little bit, but you know, it's the last project, so I'm not gonna complain at this point. This one has so first of all, it's very festive and it's very dense. So these little shapes start to read like roses a little bit, and it's almost like these roses become modules and are put together to form uh, a bigger enclosed volume. And this one, I think it's non-figurative, which I think in this format I like because it doesn't give you the context of like a human form or something like that where you're trying to read something in. It's just the shape it takes when you have this kind of module and this kind of color. So I think it's a very effective enclosed volume, and these modules, just in their construction, create a really, really rich and sort of dense texture, which is, that's that's a very 3D concept. All right, good. Okay, got an origami bunny, and so let's take a look at this. So this one is it's fairly simple, and the it's an effective shape. So in other words, I see first of all, I see the bunny, and I also like the color. If I'm looking at it in terms of enclosed volume, there is some, right? So kind of in the body and in the head, there's enclosed volume. So there is this idea of going from a 2D flat surface into 3D. Um, I think what would have helped a little bit, since it's, you guys had quite a bit of time to do this, I would have maybe have liked to seen a little bit more complex figure, or maybe a couple versions, maybe like a little bunny family. But otherwise, that's solid. That's a good that's a good enclosed volume. Oh yeah, you can especially tell around the head. So that's a really good um, by proportion. That's a really good amount of enclosed volume. Very good. All right, that's good. Yeah, lots of volume. That's great. Okay. So this is Caitlin's, and all right. So in the progress check, um, I was looking at this, and I was kind of wondering how this would become a little bit more 3D as opposed to 2D. And so first of all, these kind of ribbons cut, it's um, it's actually there is volume in there, right? And I don't know if I've ever kind of seen it in this form, but if you look at this space just in terms of like 3D, that actually becomes pretty 3D. For the shapes themselves, these are pretty flat. I can see that these are kind of bent in and out, and even like a compound curve here. So it creates volume, but it's not quite enclosed volume. Um, and this guy looks pretty flat. So if anything, you could maybe crease these right down the middle and bend them at like a 90 degrees so that they're almost V-shaped. And this one kind of does that horizontally, but I think just in terms of getting more enclosed volume, you could put I would fold these up a little bit more so that they capture a little more space. And even the hands, you can fold them and bend them so that they're kind of like, instead of like this, they're kind of like this. And that would create just a little bit of enclosed volume. All right, good. Wow, okay, this is great. Um, so one of the things I don't try to discourage flowers, but sometimes in the beginning I'll say, especially for the wire project, I'll kind of say, a lot of times flowers don't have volume, but it's not the case here. These flowers have all kinds of volume, 3D volume. So there's enclosed volumes in these little parts here, and these openings kind of create an enclosed volume for the most part. And all of them together, this is very, very volumetric. It's very textural, and so there's a lot of what's called interstitial spaces kind of in between that make these sort of organic little caves and stuff that I would also consider enclosed volume. And then this is just, it's a nice object. And one of the things that I'm going to talk about in Project 4 is to create something that you're proud of, but also has value, but also, you know, um, is worth keeping, right? So I'll talk about it a little bit more in the next project, but this is This is so pleasant. This and festive. Um, I feel like if you kept this around in your room, that it would just make the environment just a little bit happier. All right, all right, very good, very good. Let's keep going. Okay, so this is Shayna's. So I love these geometric. Okay, I want to like just compare and contrast. So Cedar's project in the first, with all the organic folds, is one way of constructing this, and I always admire that way because I'm not quite that type to do that. When I build or when I make stuff, I like to have a pattern. I like to have a plan, and so I can visualize what it's supposed to look like. But I really like admire the other kind of building where it's organic and you just go with the material. But this one I think is kind of like how I might approach the project, and that is, first of all, Shayna started with a pop-up, and I thought it was going pretty good, and then uh, and she got onto this origami form, which is really, really like adheres to the criteria of the project. So it's complicated enough. I can see that there was a lot of work put in, but in terms of enclosed volume, this is ideal. It encloses all this space. It creates its own texture, and it's a nice form. It's interesting. I think if there was more time and this was the idea that Shayna started with, that there could have been some more, like maybe smaller, again, like a little family of these that kind of always add to the end composition. If you have um, two things that are around, then the point of view is like, oh, is that a family? Is it a couple of things, or is it a group? So a group, as opposed to a singular thing, can sometimes add something. But as a shape and form by itself, it's perfectly good. All right, this is another good one. You guys, uh, not to give anybody else shade, but this is uh, uh, this is a good batch of projects, so I'm really happy to see it. This is very, very similar to what I had in mind when I created this project, using individual modules to form a greater, bigger composition that had enclosed volume. So all of these, if you look at just one piece of this, that's enclosed volume by itself. And as you put them together, it covers this area that is also enclosed volume. And look at the texture. So the texture on this is pretty substantial. It's pretty amazing. So there's all this. And again, when you put them together, these sort of interstitial spaces um, actually have their own volume a little bit. And I think that definitely adds something to the overall image. I'm not quite sure what that is. Let me see if it says anything. It doesn't matter. So this maybe is figurative. I'm not sure. Maybe non-figurative. I kind of like it as a non-figurative thing. Like, and that it's a. Let me see if anybody's chatting here. Let's see. Non-figurative. Thank you. Is that? Uh, that's good. I like it as a non-figurative item. But I also like when you kind of split the difference between figurative and non-figurative. And just as an artistic uh, not trick, but something that like a lot of artists do, they'll make it almost figurative. So it demands your attention. So you have to stand there for an extra few seconds and decide what is it? Is it figurative, non-figurative? If it's a figure, what is it? So, uh, if you go to a museum and there's a marble statue of a person, you'll see that people will look at it, appreciate it, maybe look at a detail, and just walk on, right? But if there's a non-figurative thing or it's close to figurative, people will stand there and look at it for a while, like and make their own decisions. So anyway, that's what was happening with this. All right, great. Whoa, okay, these are so good. You guys did such a great job. Uh, this is flowers and uses modules and to create um, an enclosed volume. So all that space inside there is enclosed volume. And this is gorgeous. This could be, uh, you know, I think one thing just looking at these is that if you're an artist or going to be a designer or any occupation that you have to put together a portfolio, eh, even if you're, let me back up a little bit, even if you're not sure if you're going to be an artist or a designer or something like that, uh, and you're not sure if you're going to have a portfolio, my recommendation is to photograph everything and photograph it as good as you can, like short of hiring a professional photographer. So, a lot of artists will create work and they know that they're going to be artists, so they'll get a professional photographer to photograph their work. But I look at this and I think this would be a perfect um, object for a portfolio if you turn it in, right? So if you put this in a white background or even a black background, can you imagine? That thing would just pop out, and I think this is the type of thing that would work good even if you were a painter and going applying to art school as a painter. When you apply to art schools and stuff with a portfolio, the people that are deciding who to pick will look and see if you have any skills beyond painting. So to put a 3D object, say if you're a landscape painter and you paint flowers and stuff, and all your paintings are about flowers, and then you throw in a sculpture, that definitely adds something to a portfolio. All right, this is great. Very good. Okay, so this, I love it in a whole different way, right? It some of these when you color them in and you decorate it somehow, it adds something. But in this case, I'm so glad that there's no coloring to it, right? The gray and the white and the way it's photographed itself has its own sort of not industrial, but kind of urban feel about it. This sort of gray, this sort of cold, and as a enclosed volume, this completely works, right? So you have voids. Those voids are less than 50% from this angle. So this definitely counts as an enclosed volume, but I like how this feels. All right. All right, Mr. Brown. So again, these modules put together make a type of enclosed volume. So it's not the same kind of enclosed volume where you're surrounding and have an empty space. It creates a volume that is probably over 50% air and less than 50% paper. It's it's close, but I count this as volume. And I don't know if I've ever seen in this configuration. But that module, as it fans out, really makes great wings, right? These wings look fantastic, and the object itself is interesting. This is another great item that will be nice to have around. In other words, this is something you can hang in your tree, Christmas tree. I feel like that's a good Christmas tree ornament, right? And uh, I would, I don't know if it's the mood I'm in right now, but I would like to see another little bird, just so that there's that narrative between the two things. Um, I don't know. It could just be me. I'm not I'm not downgrading because you didn't have another one, but I think it'd be nice to see. Very good. Oh, it's interesting. So it's white here. It looks greenish here. Maybe that's the light coming in, huh? So it looks like that. I like the green ones. And this is nice too. You can see the texture a little better from this angle, but I think I like that angle. And again, these are so far just about all of these I feel like could be in a portfolio, and definitely document everything you do. And Luna. All right. Perfectly good. So this is interesting because it's a little bit like Project 2, where there's contour lines, right? And in this case, they're paneled back all the way to the center. So it does create this sort of volume of space surrounded by paper. So this is a good solid version of enclosed volume. I think maybe if the if the pieces, like if they were smaller pieces, a little more detailed, it might read even more like pineapple. But I get the point. Oh, is that it? That's it. And again, if you want more feedback, just let me know, and I'm happy to talk with you. So I'm 50-50. I told you guys I'm taking a class. I'm taking an online class on how to improve your online class. So in this class, it's really good, and there's stuff that I think I want to try out. And if you don't mind, I might try it out on you guys. It's kind of like guinea pigs. But one of the things is this. Um, it's a program or an addition to Canvas called Harmonize. Um, do any of your teachers use Harmonize? Do you know what that is? No? Okay, no. All right. Now I really want to try it because then I'll be the only one. But what it is it's an overlay of Canvas, and instead of like typing responses to your work, um, according to according to this teacher, the I'll be able to like immediately give you a voice response or a video response, and also immediately like do a markup on your images that you. So if something like needs to be pointed out, I can immediately make a line and put text and say, "Oh, this is a really good feature right here," or "This needs to have more volume," or whatever. So anyway, it's an overlay. I'm 50-50 on whether to try it. Maybe I'll try it out at Citrus and see how it goes. I'll use them as a guinea pig. If you see Harmonize all of a sudden, I'm just um, I'm just trying stuff out. Okay, okay. So it's 11. I would like to. I understand one of the things in the class. that I'm taking is to like make a video of yourself teaching and try to look at it from a student perspective. And so I did that. And when I looked at my video, what I realized is that I talk way too much and I need to like be a little more efficient so I don't lose people. So, um, and to break up these long conversations so that, plus I understand what it takes to like listen to me for this long. So, what I'd like to do kind of going forward is, first of all, we're going to take a break right here, and when we come back, let's make it like 10 minutes. And so at 11:10 we'll be back, and what I'd like to do is start in on project 4, and also then we're gonna take the quiz, and that'll be it today. So we should be done-ish um, at about 11:40, something like that. Okay. Okay. So let's take a break and come back at 11:10. All right. So project 4 is the personal container. And as I was kind of mentioning earlier, there's an emphasis on this project. It's worth more in terms of grading. It is also, I'm also giving you a lot more time, kind of like double the time. You have, this is the fourth, and I believe it's like 5 weeks that you have to finish this project. So the reason is because I would like this to be kind of the summation of what you've learned so far in terms of the process, right? We know how to we know how to cut stuff. We know how to use we know how to fold stuff. We know how to use pliers and tools. And this project, I want it to be personal to you. And when I say that, I want your personality to come through. And there's a couple different ways to approach it. And one of the ways to approach this is to think of it as kind of a metaphor for you. And this will become clear when I show you examples. But a metaphor meaning, like, if you present yourself to the world as somebody that's super friendly and engaging and uh, you know uh, yeah, happy and flowers and you know whatever, and then on the inside there's something else, maybe something a little darker, like, or I don't know, kind of like crazy. I would like that to come through in your project a little bit. So, for example, you know what? Let's just go to the examples. How about that? Um, so let me share a screen. Uh-oh. Wait a minute. I better bring up the... Now I don't see you. Oh, now what have I done? Let's go to the projects. Okay. All right, let me try that again. I don't even know what happened. Here we go. All right, project 4 examples. I'll show you the examples so we can get kind of an overview, and then I'll start again and I'll go through all the criteria that I expect for this project. All right. So first of all, there are a few little kind of rules about this project, and one is you can't make a book like this. In other words, I was getting so many projects where people would get a big book and they would cut a hole in the middle and then that was their project. So the rule on books is that if you make one, you can make one, but you have to make it like this. So this student actually pressed, cut paper, pressed it, made her own binding, made her own cover, made her own latching system, and then kind of upholstered it on the inside. And that's where she kept like secret keys and stuff like that. So if you want to do the project, like you can do a secret book, but you have to make the book yourself. Okay. This is more of what I was talking about in terms of I don't expect people to have like, cold rolled steel laying around and be able to like work with it. But I showed this mostly because of the narrative side. And this student was at Pasadena City College. And when he came in, he was very cold, standoffish, kind of aloof, a little bit sarcastic, um, not unpleasant, but not super warm and engaged. He was just sort of just this kind of icy. He was frosty. uh, so, but as time went on, the people at his table started to chat him up a little bit. He, his defenses kind of came down a little bit. And to make a long story short, by the end of the semester, he was adored by the whole class. He was so engaging and warm and friendly and empathetic, and he was very generous with his materials and would offer people rides and all, he just became this like sweetheart. And this was his final project. And then to me, it suited him so perfectly because this outside was like very cold and stern and standoffish and don't come in here, very guarded, right? But I don't know if you can see this little switch right here, but when you turn on the switch, it lights up the inside. And on the inside, it's hard to tell, but there's like this mylar heart, and all the inside is like blue fur. It couldn't be more like him because there's very much a soft spot. And so I very much liked the contrast in this project because it contrasts very kind of cold with very cold and hard with soft and warm. The only thing that might have made it even warmer is if he used like a warmer color instead of like blue. But part of that was just the lighting. So it was mostly white, if you can imagine. All right, so that one was really good in terms of uh, narrative and being a personal container. This one I liked because of the materials. So this student actually um, actually became a teacher and ended up teaching this same course. But when I assigned it, this student literally just walked outside and started collecting pine needles and collected a bunch of them. And the next class started weaving these things together. And she had some like thread and yarn and stuff, or I can't remember. This material was in the class already. So she literally just walked around and found stuff around the classroom and made this basket and weaved each little pine needle together to make this pretty incredible. It's very nice, and the feel of it is it's a little heavier than you might think it would be. And she just went after it and was finished before the rest of the class. So she decided to make this book in addition to her project. And that speaks volumes to me when you finish the project and you're like, instead of like cruising, you start in on some other thing, you know? And so she made this book. She did the whole thing, the binding, everything. And the book is related to the basket. So it ended up being kind of a picnic basket. And so when she'd go on a picnic or use the basket, she would document in the book what happened, what she ate, who she was with, if she was by herself, etc. So it became a diary for the basket. And I just thought that was great. And this closes and it latches, and then it closes, the book closes, and then it also latches into the thing. So you could carry it around. There's a handle on the other side. So you could kind of carry it around as a singular unit, but it kind of unfolds and opens itself. So that was a great project. This one's one of my favorite because This was around, I think, 2005. This is almost 20 years ago. Oh my God. So, this was my first autistic student that I knew was autistic. And the reason I love this so much is because the student really had a difficult time with the first three projects. I couldn't really communicate. I didn't know, I could tell there was something about him, but I couldn't tell what his disability was, and it only came to me later. But um, at the end of when we started Project 4, I was like, is there anything that you're interested in? Do you have a hobby? Do you play video games? Is there anything that you can use as a starting point? And he's like, well, I don't know if this will count, but I love going to the beach. And I was like, okay. And then he goes, and I love collecting seashells. It's one of my things. And I was like, could you use your seashells in your project? And he's like, am I allowed to do that? And I'm like, oh my God, yes, please do, right? So he came up with this, and it's a nice object. I like how it looks, but there's things in here that are kind of next level that I wasn't quite expecting. So the hinges are actually, he made the hinges behind here, and I wish I had another picture, but the hinges are these shells that go into a point or 2 points, and they act as a hinge, right? This shell, it actually pivots backwards, and there's a point on the shell that goes into that hole right there. So the shell itself actually like locks into the other shell, and it shuts. So you can turn this upside down without stuff falling out. And and then I learned a lot about, people that are on the spectrum. And if you look a little bit, and sometimes you have to look, but there's almost always some kind of hidden superpower, right? There's always some sort of thing that they're into that they're really passionate about. And so what I learned is that a lot of us have something like that, right? Something you collect, bottle caps, um, you know, some people are, old CDs, anything kind of collectible, but it doesn't have to be collectible. I have a collection of um, misformed hardware, like uh, every once in a while, if I get like a package of screws, sometimes one screw won't have any threads because it was just deformed, like at the factory. So I love those kind of things, and I pull them out and I set them aside. So I have this collection of weird kind of things. Um, so that's the general kind of idea of the project, but I want to go to the project page and give you all the criteria kind of in order here. So let me see. Gotta go to modules. All right, project 4. Okay. All right, so project 4. The first rule is everything should be free. Like, don't buy anything except maybe like glue or tape, kind of the essentials. But for the most part, I should look at your project and go, oh, it's made out of pine cones. So I realize you might have had to buy the hot glue, but the pine cones or whatever you make it out of should be free. So ideally, this project should cost you nothing. And I extra like it when, say, you don't have glue or something, but you figure out some way to connect it by like tying it together. So I like it when you kind of use your ingenuity in this project. And here's the bigger picture and why I like this. You know, if you think about things that we normally throw out and end up in a landfill, I'd like you guys to think about using stuff that would normally be in a landfill and making it into something that you truly have value or you treasure, right? And the idea being that, we're not going to make a big difference or any like noticeable difference in the world, but I do like the idea of taking stuff out of a landfill and giving it value. And the more value you give it, the better chance it will stay out of the landfill, if that makes sense. Like, in other words, if you make it like something you really want to keep, it won't end up in the trash. That's kind of the overall thing. Uh, the materials must be transformed from their original purpose. So, for what would be a good example? Um, okay, say you use soda cans, right? Aluminum soda cans. What you shouldn't do is just take a bunch of aluminum soda cans and glue them together to make your structure. What I would like you to do is to transform the materials into kind of a working material. So in the case of aluminum can, you could cut it up, and the aluminum is so thin you can really just use scissors, right? You could cut up an aluminum can and reverse it so there's no advertising on it, so that it's just kind of a aluminum or silver color, and you can use that as sheeting, right? You can actually sew through that material, or you could clad it onto foam board. That's fine with me. So that would be an example of transforming the material into a different use. If you have bottle caps, don't just glue a bunch of bottle caps onto something. Turn them over, flatten them out, pound them into like little round discs, and then you could drill holes to connect them. And I saw a student do this to make uh, the container was like a fish, and then the bottle caps ended up being like kind of scales on the fish. So that's a good way to transform the material. Another example, you're not allowed to use Legos in the normal sense. In other words, you can't find Legos and put together your project and then there's your project. But if you transform the Legos into something else, like you melt them or you cut them up or you do something different with them, then I'll allow it, right? But whatever the original purpose, I want you to transform the material. Okay. So the container should be personal to you. We talked about that. The container must open, close, and stay shut. Uh, so you can't go to Home Depot and buy hardware. So you have to come up with your own hinges, right? And it has to stay shut. So you can't go to Home Depot and buy a latch. You have to figure out your own latching system. Okay. Also, it's not here, but in terms of size, you can make them any size. So we've had as small as a student cut off the end of a broom and hollowed it out and made this cam sort of latching attachment and was able to store their like an important document in there. So that was perfectly acceptable and it came out beautifully. Um, and we've had projects as big as a teepee, like an actual like 6 foot tall teepee that the student constructed. It was sort of collapsible and could be stored. It was really actually a clever design, but it was 6 feet tall. So there's not really a size limit. One thing I'll mention, and that is a student asked me if they could build a tree house for their project, and I immediately was like, absolutely, like go ahead. Then I thought about it, and I realized that, for an online student to be up in a tree with sharp tools, I decided that that was maybe a liability issue. So I recommended that they didn't do that, and the student did something else. Okay, so the project, please don't just get a cardboard box and decorate it. Uh, and I don't know, I could probably say this 30 or 40 times, and someone's just gonna bring a box and decorate it and turn it in. So I'd like you to make your own form. Now, the form could be soft-sided. So if you know how to sew, you can sew your project together. So we've had backpacks, we've had purses, we've had like clutch, I don't know what those are called, clutch purses or whatever. And so eh, you can do a lot of different things, but I just don't want it to be a box. And I don't even like it when you call it a box, because then it becomes a box. So, um, this is your personal container, and whatever form is most personal to you is probably the best idea. So, if you have skills already, I mean, you all have skills already, but if you have a certain skill already, like you know how to sew, or if you know how to do needlepoint, or if you paint, or you want to add an illustration, um, you can add sound to this, right? Like these things can make their own sounds, and you can add lighting to it. So if you're good with electronics a little bit or electrical work, you can add that to this project, and it all, the more the merrier. Like whatever you're good at, see if you can apply it. And if there's nothing that interests you, try to think of it as in a narrative term. So um, I talked about do, doing it in terms of like what do you call it? A metaphor. But I used to like assign this where it was a precious object holder, right? Where if there's something in your life that you value, right, what kind of container would you make for it, right? So that's one. So for example, I have in the 90s when they tore down the Berlin Wall, it was a big deal back then. It represented democracy defeating communism. And it was a huge deal because it separated East Berlin from West Berlin. And I had a friend that lived close to the wall, and uh, I sent him a letter, and I was like, "Hey, can you get me a piece of the wall?" And so he sent a chunk of the wall back. It was kind of flat, but about the size of a baseball, with a little graffiti on it. And he took a picture of where he busted it out from the wall. And over the years, I would break off pieces and give them to people, and now it's about the size of a quarter, and it's yellow. It has a little yellow spray paint on it, and I think it's my most valuable thing, just because I think about the history of it. I think about who gave it to me. I think about who I gave the pieces to. So it's just become this kind of like very small thing. So if I were to like make a container for it, I wouldn't just like find a little cardboard box for it and that would be it. I would want people to see it, so I might make it a glass container. I would put a lot of effort into it. I might think about, uh, you know, Cold War times and what that would look like. Um, so that's one approach that you can use. Okay, I'm going to pause. Any questions so far? If you have questions, you can also type them in the chat as well. All right, let's keep going. Oh, here's another example. I forgot that this was posted here. So this was just made from some of the foam board left over. So that's free. You can use that, right? You can use the wire, of course, because I mean, it wasn't free, but you already paid for it, so it's kind of free. And this was just used made from foam board, but just different foil, like tin foil and colored foil. And this was the container. And I just thought it was so nice because it looks so precious. And the student that made it was very, very, took in seemingly every bit of information, including putting feet on their project. So this was I think this is probably I think I probably gave this an A or an A plus. All right. One thing I want to show you, let me see how I'm going to do this. Okay, so that's, stop share, and then I'm going to bring up, I have a materials list that a different class made, and I want to share. Normally I have you guys sit there and then come up with it, but I don't feel like it today. uh, okay, can you guys see that okay? So screenshot that, and you can use this as kind of not a list, a full list, an incomplete list of materials possibility, right? That you can use in this project. Avocado skin was a good one. Yeah, because when it dries out, it's really tough, and you can sew it. You can really just like hot glue it together, and then it makes an interesting sort of shell. Remember Legos? You can use those, but you have to melt them or disfigure them in some way. So let's see, what else is there bones in here? Stuff you find, oh yeah, bones. So stuff you find in the kitchen. So people have baked their project together. Pine cones is a good one. Pine cones, anything you find, leaves. If you just use leaves from just outside, you can clear coat them or paint them with Elmer's, and they become very, very kind of rigid and a good working material. So everybody got this? Okay. All right. So what are we forgetting? Examples. Oh, the quiz. Let's take the quiz really quick. And then just a couple more things and that's it. Project 4. Um, Quiz, Project 4. Here we go. All right, just very quickly. So again, you can take the quiz along, you can take it live, or you can just write the answers down. Question number 1, why is this called a personal container? Because you should make this a metaphor for your interior and exterior, because you can use it to store all your personal items. The object is personal to you because you made it, all of the above. What kind of materials can I use? Pretty much anything you can find for free. The container has to stay shut and closed. True. How big can this project be? All of the above. I can buy hardware from Lowe's for this project. That's false. Which of the following would not be good to use as materials for the personal container? Neighbors, mailbox. Don't steal anything. I used to, you know what, forget it. Just don't steal anything. uh, don't buy anything. Don't steal anything. Okay. What does it mean to transform materials in this project? Paint them a different color. Alter the meaning function of the material. That's it. Create a transformer from the material. Not technically wrong, but that's not the right answer. Connect the materials to an electrical transformer. That's definitely wrong. If your project is flat on the bottom, what should you do? Oh, I didn't really go over this, but this is a product design 101. They they put this. If you look at sort of anything, I have a printer and a Wi-Fi pod thing. You'll notice like your microwave, everything has little tiny feet on it, right? So that does a lot of things. First of all, it lifts it off the surface, right? And it visually makes a shadow around it, but it also makes it easier to lift, like to get your fingers under. And if something spills on a counter, like in a microwave, then uh, it doesn't go all up in the microwave. There's little feet, so anything liquid or water will settle below it. So design-wise, just put, if you have something that sits flat or flush, unless that's supposed to be like that, like a pyramid, right? You wouldn't put feet on a pyramid, I don't think. But for the most part, 90% of the time, it helps if you add feet, legs, or little risers. What criteria will increase the project grade? Just take a look. It's all of the above. And how should I submit this project? Okay, so I need to update this because we don't have Hangout anymore. But it's the bottom, photos and video to Canvas. And uh, to be complete about it, I want you to have there's going to be 3 photos and a video, right? Also, I want you guys to take video of yourselves while you're creating the project. And this came up last semester, and it was so because one of the students tried to use AI and skip the basically skipped the progress check and just turned in this AI container. And so when I asked the student to like prove like that he built it, he went back to AI and came up with these crazy things that were like tools and stuff that don't exist in the world. It was wild, but he tried it and didn't accept it. But to avoid that, um, just take some video of yourself. If it's a picture of you working, that's fine. And what I want to try to avoid is situations where you're just taking images from the internet or someone else is doing the project for you. I'd like to see you in action working on this, and it's your container, it's personal to you, so of course I want you to make it. And I think if you focus on telling the story, that will help. Okay, did that, did the quiz. All right. So just a few, this is our last meeting. So uh, I want to just officially go over some of the end of the semester things. Not officially, but just so that I know that I said it to you. And the first thing is grading. So if you look on Canvas, you can kind of get an idea of what your grade is. The Canvas thing isn't correct. Sometimes it gives you a number that doesn't add in the final project. It actually adds in the final project at 100%. So it gives you an inflated percentage of what your actual grade is. So the if you keep track of your total points over the semester, 100 is the highest unless you do extra credit, right? So all the points that you have, you can take a look and you can take a look at how much the final project is worth and the progress checks, how much they're worth. And you can kind of like guess, you can add it up and it'll show you your percentage. And if it's like it adds up to like 92, then that's going to be an A. There won't be a situation where it adds up to 92 and then I give you a B. Like the only way that it would work is it might add up to 88, and I'll go back into the discussions and see if you guys helped each other, see if you helped someone out. I'll look at your comments and see if you were kind of a net positive in the class, and generally if you just help someone at any point, I'll just make that 88 a 90, and that's a big deal because that's the difference between a B and an A, right? So another thing that I want to be clear is your grade. If there's any doubt, or if you do the math and you're right between an A and a B, let me know and we can go over extra credit, right? So if you do 3 extra credits, that 88, you can kind of think of extra credits as 1 point, right? So if you do an extra credit, if you do 2 extra credits, that'll turn your 88 into a 90, and then you get an A, right? So I'm basically looking for ways to give you a higher grade, but you have to kind of play along on your end. And what I don't like is somebody expected an A and got a B, because it doesn't help anyone, right? So if we sort of figure it out going into the end, that way there's no surprises. Generally speaking, I will give you either the grade you deserve or 1 grade higher. Um, and that's just how I've gone about it. It's sort of because the grades are arbitrary to me. Like I sort of look at them a different way, but I know that they're not arbitrary to you. So if you can come up with some way uh, to make your grade higher, I'll even accept like proposed extra credit. Like a student is went up to Seattle, and I was like, oh, go to the museum there. It's really good. Poof, extra credit. Okay, so that's it. I am gonna try that harmonized thing. Oh, I'm not for sure if I'm gonna try it. So if you see it, uh, don't feel like it's something you have to do or thing. Uh, uh, just know that I'm sort of messing around on this end. Okay. And the final thing, expectations. I think that's it. I feel like I'm forgetting something. We did the quiz, right? Okay, that's it. So I'm gonna try and I'll try to stay in touch. It's a long, it's another 5 or 6 weeks before the end of the semester, so I'll try to stay in touch, and you do your part in um, keeping up with the progress checks. And I believe This is the last official meeting. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So Monday is a holiday, right? This coming Monday. So we're not going to meet. So we'll probably meet in 2 weeks. And then I think that week is the week of Thanksgiving. So it looks like we'll have one meeting before Thanksgiving, and that'll be a good point to like check in on your progress and stuff. And so then we'll go from there. All right. You guys have any questions?
Um, yeah, so you said this is the last official meeting, but then we are gonna have a meeting? I'm a little confused.
S- say that again.
Um, so this is not the last official meeting? You said we're gonna meet again in like 2 weeks?
Yeah, so it'll be, this is Long Beach, right? So we'll
Yeah.
have our regular um, we'll have our regular class meeting, but it won't be a graded meeting.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry that that got confusing all semester because there was uh, there was graded meetings and uh, regular attendance, right? Oh, that was the other thing about Long Beach is that um, if your attendance has been really good, that's an extra credit thing. And if you look at the extra credit and attendance, you can kind of see where you rank in terms of getting extra credit points. So that's just another way. But that's just through the regular attendance. It's not through the graded meetings. And so next week is a holiday, and then the week after that is just a regular attendance thing. Yeah. And I apologize because I kept getting it screwed up in my head because I always, none of the other schools that I teach at actually have a regular meeting. It's asynchronous. So they only have graded meetings. So sorry if I got confused there. Okay. All right. Well, then have a good whatever holiday it is. What is it next week? I don't know. Veterans Day or something? Memorial Day. No, Memorial Day? Whatever. Have a
Veteran.
good have a good weekend. And I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just thought of like my other question I had.
Sure.
So I was gonna submit the voting extra credit, but I was also thinking about going to a museum soon. So should I just wait to put it all together? Because then you don't have to like reopen it, or will it allow me to
You
submit?
can just submit it on top of each other
Okay.
and I'll go back and tally it. So whatever's easier for you.
Okay. Sounds
Okay.
good. Thank you.
All right. See ya.